Hey guys, Dylan from Noble Records coming at you with another video. One of the most common questions I get is why are some records worth more than others? It's a great question. If you're just starting out, that may be a very confusing thing to you. People come to the shop all the time and they say, hey, I have 100 records at home, how much could you give me for them? And I say, I gotta see them. And they say, why? I say, well, it depends on a bunch of different factors. But two of the biggest factors that it depends on, it all boils down to supply and demand and condition. You guys know what supply and demand is. If you go on Discogs, you can see people have want lists and then people have collections. So a lot of times if it's a really rare record and it's worth a lot of money, you'll see like only a couple people have it in their collection, but a bunch of people have it in their want list. That kind of tells you there's a high demand for that and they're rare. So that's going to be worth a lot of money. There are records that are rare that aren't worth anything. I find records all the time that are super rare. There's probably only 100 in the world, but no one likes it, no one wants it, so it's not worth anything. So the key factor is that a lot of people want it and nobody has it. That's what makes for a really expensive, valuable record. And then condition, always, as with any collectible, condition is everything. This is one, I brought some records to show, to have some flashcards and kind of, so you're not just looking at me the whole time. But this is a really cool compilation. It's Led Zeppelin 1 and Led Zeppelin 2. It's a German comp. I think it's kind of rare. It's got this really cool inner gatefold. They usually go for, I can't remember, maybe like 50 bucks. I can't remember, but a friend of mine just brought it in the shop and gave it to me because the vinyl on it is just absolutely destroyed. There you go. You can see it real good. So it's not worth anything. If you put this on your turntable, there's a good chance you would mess up your needle. So it's not worth it to me. But he gave it to me, and I'm probably going to try to frame that inner gatefold at some point in the shop because he knows I love Led Zeppelin. So that's an example of something that would be worth money, but since it's so beat up, it's really not worth anything. Another big factor is availability. Now, let's talk about jazz. Jazz records, can be worth a ton of money, but they also can be really, really cheap. This is Duke Ellington at Newport. This is one of the better Duke Ellington albums, in my opinion. I haven't looked this up. I'm not sure what it really goes for, but most Duke Ellington records go between, anywhere from $3 to $7. They're not expensive albums. Duke Ellington was fantastic. There's nothing wrong with Duke Ellington one bit. But the availability was super high. Back then, Duke Ellington was probably, if not the most popular jazz artist. Him and Count Basie, really, really, really available, really popular. You find Duke Ellington in record collections all the time. They're everywhere. He was on a really popular label, Columbia Records, and they were pumping these things out like crazy. I mean, there's hundreds of thousands of these things. So it's not rare. A lot of people have it. And then also, Duke Ellington was so popular because he was very presentable to the public. So he was polished, he was professional, he was cleaned up, he was very presentable to the public. So these records are not worth a whole lot of money, still fantastic music. Still talking about jazz, we got Art Blakey and Jazz Messengers. This is Moanin'. This is a first pressing on Blue Note. Blue Note's a little bit tougher to get. It's a record label that all jazz collectors are, they love collecting them. I love collecting them. This is a record that didn't get nearly as many copies made as anything Duke Ellington. And usually when you find these, they've been played and played and played to death, and they're in really bad shape. This one's in really good shape, so this record could go for around 150 bucks, give or take. So what makes this record worth more than that record? Like I said, there's a lot more of those put out and a lot less of these. And this wasn't really geared towards a public audience. I mean, not a lot of people bought these records because this is hard bop jazz. It's a little bit more raw. Oh, it's a lot more raw. It's not nearly as polished. This is for a sophisticated ear. This is for somebody that is a music aficionado. This is not for your average suburban people that would buy Ellington. This is for people that are a little bit more advanced. And so for that reason, it wasn't as marketable, it wasn't as popular then, not as many copies were made then. So now there's a lot of people that are music aficionados, they're looking for stuff like this, and they're impossible to find because the supply then was low. Supply now is even lower. The demand now is way higher, so a lot of people want it. So that's kind of an example of why a record might be worth more money. Another thing, oh my gosh, people ask me this all the time. I've got all these Elvis records at home. I've been saving them. I've been saving them for a rainy day because they're worth so much money. I'm going to pay my house off, pay my mortgage off, and just retire. I'm sorry to tell you, but that's probably not going to happen. Elvis is fantastic. We all know that. This is the most valuable record he has, all right? This is his first album. I have sold copies of this for $150 that are in really clean condition. It's in mono copies for a lot. This is not a mono copy. This is a stereo copy, and you can tell by the big stereo letters. The original of this was 1956. The reissue, this is a stereo, so because it's a stereo, I know that it's no earlier than 1962, because 1962 is when they issued it in stereo. So I know that this is a repressing, and also this one's not really in very great shape. So although I can get a mono and sell it if it's in really good shape, a mono I can sell it for $150 or more, and I've done that several times. So they do sell for that much. This might be worth $20. It's not worth nearly as much, even though it's just a few years difference, and it's stereo. Sometimes stereo versus mono, it can make a big difference. So that's another factor, and conditions also a factor on that one. Another big factor is how popular they were then versus how popular they are now. The Stooges, most of us know the Stooges. They weren't super popular back then. They weren't like Led Zeppelin back then. They weren't as polished and, you know, presentable to the public as Bread or America or Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young or whatever. So this is an original pressing on Elektra, first pressing of the Stooges. That can be worth some decent money. Another one is sought after pressings, different pressings. So a regular pressing of Led Zeppelin 2, $15-20. You know, this is the coveted Robert Ludwig pressing of Led Zeppelin 2. It has a RL in the matrix numbers. There's a long history of why that's worth more money, but it just sounds a whole lot better. I don't have time to explain it. Maybe I'll do a video on that soon. But the RL pressing is highly sought after. These can go for, if they're really clean, I just sold one for $225. I've seen them go up to $300 if they're really clean. So that's the Robert Ludwig pressing. Sometimes there's imports that are worth more money. Certain labels are worth more money. This is Fairport Convention, unhalf bricking, and it's on this sweet Pink Island label. Those Pink Island labels are very, very sought after. A lot of people look for that stuff. That doesn't mean it's going to be worth a lot of money, but some of them are worth money. Another example is this Black Sabbath Master of Reality. You know, here in the U.S., you can get a regular copy for $20 or less. You know, this is the original UK pressing on Vertigo. These don't go for $20, folks. This is a lot more expensive. You can look it up on Discogs and see for yourself. These go for a lot. So that is not the same as your regular old, you know, Warner Brothers pressing of this. This is a sought-after pressing. It's the first UK pressing of it. So it's worth a lot more money because those are a lot more rare. I'm going to show you a few copies. I'm a Led Zeppelin fanatic, so I've got a lot of Zeppelin stuff. Another import, people collect Japanese pressings. Some people claim they sound better. Some people claim they don't. You could be the judge of that, but they certainly are really, really aesthetically pleasing and very cool. So it's got this, what they call an Obi strip. A lot of people collect that and it can be worth a little bit more money. This is a really rare pressing of House of the Holy. I believe this is a New Zealand pressing. But it has, as you can see, the inner gatefold printed on the outside. So they call it inverted. So that can be worth a little more money because it's just really weird. It's just a weird pressing of it. You don't see that very much. This is another one. I don't know what this is worth. I just thought I'd show it because I don't know that I've ever showed it on my channel before. This is a really cool pressing of House of the Holy. So you've got on this side, you know, regular Houses of the Holy. And then on this side, you got nothing. Completely blank label. Why? I don't know. So that is a pressing error. Some pressing errors can be worth money. Some of them aren't. This one, I really don't know. It is a reissue anyways. I've heard that there's a pressing of this that has Houses of the Holy on one side and Green Day Dookie on the other side. They were repressing House of the Holy at the same time they were pressing Dookie. And that one can actually be worth a lot of money because it's just weird, you know? So sometimes if it's a weird thing, it can be worth money. A lot of people ask me, are promos worth money? The answer is sometimes. This is a case where promos are worth more. This is a really nice copy of Son House, great blues record. And here is a really clean white label promo. Kind of show you the white label there with the timing strip on it. So the timing strip is sometimes, if you can find, you know, one of these Columbia pressings with a timing strip, they could be worth more money. The reason why promos can sometimes be worth money is because when they're pressing a record, those were the first records pressed of that run. And as these plates kept getting records pressed and pressed and pressed and pressed and pressed, the grooves get a little bit more dull, and they supposedly don't sound as good towards the end as they do at the beginning. So the promos were in the beginning. They're collectible, they're cool, they're the earliest possible version, so that's why sometimes they're worth money. But in the 80s, when they did the gold stamp promos, those aren't really worth a lot more, not like the white label promos are. So that's another indication. Now, probably one of the biggest things outside of availability and condition and all that stuff, and that is original pressing versus a reissue. So this is a great, I got this and I was just thrilled, okay? This is Sam Rivers' Contours, a little bit more abstract jazz, but I absolutely love this type of jazz. This is a phenomenal record, and this is a tone poet. So another pro tip, you know, they've got these Blue Note tone poets that have come out. They sound great, they're awesome, and these go for like 20 bucks, something like that, not a whole lot. But it's a fantastic sounding record. Now, this one looks the exact same. They must be worth the same amount. No, they're not. This is an original first pressing, and this papa is clean. These go for, like those go for 20 bucks because they're reissued. They're coming out now. They're not hard to get. They're still, I don't know if those are still in print, but I think they are. This is a original pressing. These go for, I don't know. I really don't know. There's one that was sold that's about this clean a couple of weeks ago. It sold for $275, but they have sold in the past for up to 800 bucks, which kind of brings me to another point. There is market value that goes up and down, and that depends on a lot of different factors as well. Genres, sometimes they're worth more. Certain genres are worth more. Sometimes they're worth less. Like when the Queen movie came out, Queen records prices went way up on eBay. Sometimes when an artist dies, their records can go up in value. I know when David Bowie died, a lot of his albums, they had a spike and they came back down. Like after the Queen movie, there was a spike, but those numbers are starting to come back down on auction websites like eBay and stuff like that. So are they really worth more? Were they ever really worth more? That's for you to decide. Another one in the different issues, you know, sometimes you see this original master recording on top. There's no hard and fast rule on which ones are worth money and which ones aren't. This is one of the ones that are kind of worth more money. These can go for around 200 bucks. This is Pink Floyd, Adam Hart Mother. So this is one of the more rare original master recordings that's on the higher end. But there's some, like I just had James Gang Rides Again, you know, original master recording, and that one doesn't go for nearly as much. I think they go for like 25 bucks, something like that. So it just depends on how rare it is, how desirable it is, just like supply and demand, all that stuff that I already mentioned at the top of the video. And then there's also, you know, I just thought I'd show this. This is a great psych record. If this was a first pressing, it'd be 500 bucks. This is not. This is a reissue, so it's worth like 20 bucks. So, you know, it's one of those things. Another strange thing that is a phenomenon in the past decade is Record Store Day. So sometimes something can have a limited release like it does on Record Store Day, and the numbers can spike afterwards if there's a limited amount and a lot of people want it. Like this Grateful Dead at Winterland. I don't know how much these retail for. I think on Record Store Day they were going for 25 or 30 bucks. Now I think these are upwards towards 100 bucks or so because a lot of people want them and they're not around anymore because it was a limited release. That doesn't mean you should go to Record Store Day and buy 10 copies of everything, because a lot of that stuff isn't worth any more later. Some of it is, some of it's not. You kind of never know. So wrapping up the video, there's a lot of other factors that can make a record worth money. There's a lot of weird factors. One big one that I just discovered the past few years is drum breaks. So drum breaks can be, DJs search for drum breaks that they can use and they can sample. So certain records might have a certain, little couple seconds that they need off of that record, and they need it. So they have to buy it, and that can make the record worth a lot more money. It can be something weird, it can be something silly. I've known aerobics records, believe it or not, that have a certain drum break on it and that DJs go crazy for it and they're looking for it. So that's one thing that can make a record worth money, and you almost never know what record that's going to be. So when in doubt, look it up. Another one that I just have to show, I can't go to the end without showing this. This is Leonard Skinner's Street Survivors with the Flames. As we all know, this record is worth millions of dollars. No, it's not. All the time I get people and they say, I got an original Street Survivors with the Flames, baby. And I'm like, that's great, you got 20 bucks tops. You know, this record this is a clean, mint condition. It's got the poster and everything, and it's worth 20 bucks. You know, I joke around with some friends of mine sometimes. I think I've seen more with the Flames than without the Flames. They're not rare. It was kind of, and I hate it, but we all know the story. If you don't, Leonard Skinner died in a plane crash right as his album was released. After the first pressing of this album, they redid the cover, and it was black instead of the flame. So everyone says the flame covers were worth so much money. But you have to remember at the time, Leonard Skinner was in this plane crash. They're one of the most popular bands in the country. So it's not like they only made 100 copies of this. There's thousands and thousands and thousands of these. When they first pressed these, I mean, they were in every record store in the country. So they're not rare. They're just not. I see them all the time. I get 10 of them a week at the shop. I'm not joking. So I hate to bust your bubble if I'm the first one telling you that. But sometimes records that have an interesting story can be worth money, and something might be interesting with the cover, a rare edition, whatever. And then, you know, another thing's autographs. Are records that are autographed worth a whole lot more money? No. This is a Link Ray autograph. A lot of people ask me about it. It was in the background on one of my other videos. I bought some stuff from a friend of mine that had met Link Ray. So I think I have 6 signed Link Ray records. And that's just because I wanted all his records, and they happen to be signed, and I'm a sucker for that. So it doesn't mean that the record's worth a ton of money. Autographs, that's a whole different ball game, but it applies here. The value of the record makes a big difference. The person who signed it makes a big difference. Like if it's a Led Zeppelin record and it was signed by all 4 members, even John Bonham, who's passed away, that can be worth a whole lot of money because he's dead now. If the celebrity or the musician never signs things, that can make it worth a whole lot. Like I said, if they're passed away, that can make it worth a lot. But for the most part, an autograph album a lot of times isn't worth as much as you think, unless it's an extreme situation, like it's a really popular band and there's members of the band that have passed away, stuff like that. So, like I said, there are so many more factors that can make albums worth money. Those are the main ones that I've seen. So I thought I would kind of open it up, share this with you guys. Feel free to have a discussion if you think of another reason why a record's worth money, or a funny reason why, or if you think of a certain album that's worth a lot of money that shouldn't be. Feel free to comment on it. We'd all love to hear about it. If you like this video, hit the subscribe button, and we do videos as much as possible. We have a record store. So follow us on Instagram and Facebook. We always post about all the cool stuff that we're finding. All the links to that's in the description of this video, where you can also buy hats, t-shirts, stickers, all that stuff to support my shop. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. We'll see you next time.